I'm going to be giving you a bit of insight into business transformation. So as Raf said, I've worked in quite a few different companies, helping them with transformations, and wanted to give you guys a bit of an insight into sort of what goes into business transformation. And it's a very big buzzword. I think everyone jumps on the bandwagon about business transformations. Is it as big as it really is? And I think ultimately what I would probably want to share with you is just some of the experiences I've had, and hopefully that adds some value to you guys, that you can take some nuggets of information from there and apply it to your own businesses and the environments you're working in. Effectively, business transformation is all around, from my perspective, is actually fundamentally changing the way a business operates or its services it provides to its end customers and clients. So it's quite a shift and a revolution in the way business is done, not really so much as an evolution. But in order to get it implemented correctly, I think people start as we've had a new director, new leadership in an organization. They decide to then go, okay, we're going to do a business transformation activity. And I think personally, that's probably the wrong point in time to do it. So I think these activities need to happen a lot more in advance. And it's about actually preparing yourselves for transformation. Transformation is something, is change. Change is the only constant we all have. And you need to set up your organizations that are actually very agile and are very transparent in their dealings. And a part of that is about understanding your cost bases that your business operates, because ultimately any transformation that you do will result in a business case having to be presented, and you need to understand very accurately what your true costs are to operate, how you operate your business today, and how that transformation, what the outcomes will be, and the impacts it may have on your organization's P&L and profit margins. Now, ultimately, I think, again, one, understanding costs. Two, you need to have actually a robust team in place and hold the structures. And I think the best way to describe this is, if you think of if any of you play Trivial Pursuit, you get your little pies and maybe 6 little wheels that you go around. Think of that as a pie chart you have in your organization. And you can have many different sectors of that pie. Part of it is process, part of it is people, part of it is resources. And these, if you think of the center of the pie being 0 and the outer being 10, you need to look and say, measure yourselves objectively in your organization as to how do you meet, or how far along that line of maturity are you. And you'll eventually draw a little graph on this pie. Now, if you take that analogy now and you make it look like it's a wheel, and if most organizations will have quite a varied set of pieces of the pie. Now, if you translate that into a wheel, and it's a very jagged pie, as you start going forward, it'll be a very slow and bumpy ride that you'll be going on as an organization, and it's very, very difficult to effect a transformation. So one of the key areas in preparation for transformation is making sure that it doesn't matter, it's keeping that pie a very small circle and making sure that all the areas are consistent and at relatively the same level, and then work on expanding those ones out. Equally, if you have a measure of 8 or 9 out of 10, and others are like a 2 or 3, work on the 2 or 3 elements to get them to an 8 or 9, so you have a more circular wheel. And if you put that analogy back into how quickly you can transform, the smaller the wheel, you're not going to travel very far or very fast. The bigger the wheel that you have, you can travel much further and a lot faster. And your objective from an organizational point of view is making sure that all those pieces of the puzzle are expanded to the maximum degree, and at least you can get some momentum going. And as you start doing that momentum, organizations can mature their people, their resources, their processes, their governance, etc., outwards, and that wheel becomes bigger and enables you to transform a lot quicker and start steamrolling ahead. So that's a really critical element. I think other lessons learned from my experiences is, I would imagine most of you guys are in the IT world, so a lot of times technology transformations tend to lead these activities, and that's probably the wrong thing to do. Business transformation is all around having key stakeholders in the organization, setting a very, very clear vision of what you're trying to achieve. And then it's about the process of how you feed that vision out to your direct reports, and then a process of then taking from those direct reports that they are offering up certain individuals within the organization, much more junior level people, to help to be facilitated by a third party to help them define the processes that are required to meet the new business objectives. And I think that's a critical thing. So in transformation, you start with process first, once you have that process absolutely locked down and set out, and it shouldn't be a process delivered from top down, it should be from actually more bottom up. It's then applying what roles do you require in your organization to support those business processes. Once you have the roles, is what job descriptions, because you may have 2 roles falling into one job description. These are all components that need to be really, really easily slotted together. And only once you have all those roles and job descriptions set out do you then define the organization that needs to be, organizational structure that needs to be there to support those processes. And that's ultimately the high-level process of how you actually do business transformation. I think other learnings I've had is stakeholder engagement is absolutely critical, and it's about having the right level of buy-in from the top. It has to be a very transparent and team effort, and there needs to be transparency between the business and IS functions or IT functions. There needs to be transparency between any suppliers or partners you're working with and trying to deliver that, and you need to ensure open dialogue at every opportunity to make sure that everyone's on the same page and we're moving forward. Equally, I think a big part to all change and transformation is people, and people are your most valuable resource. We're talking about technology and all these wonderful things we can do, but ultimately if you don't have the people behind that, it amounts to nothing. So you will have naysayers to the vision that you are trying to implement, but having those naysayers, I think they are good people to have, because they will actually be people that are quite passionate about the business, and no one generally likes change. Engage those individuals, understand what their challenges are, why they're against whatever transformation you're trying to do, and engage them. Equally, there's also the point to say that some people will never want to change, and it's also some big decisions that have to be made very early on in the processes, whether you keep those individuals in your organization. You have to obviously work with them to try and get them involved and engage in the process, but if they don't, it becomes, I know I use the word cancer, it can be a very negative, I don't want to use what word, just negative influence on the whole program. Those people will start being disenfranchised, they'll start communicating, it puts doubt in other people's minds, and you need to have, for transformation to be very successful, everyone on the same page, driving the same direction. Equally, transformation is not a short-term project or program. Transformations happen over a number of years, and that is another lesson that I've certainly learned in my time. There are a lot of companies they become very ambitious, a lot of new leadership want to set the world alight, which is great. However, you lose momentum very quickly, and if you make things too complex, the ability to execute on that is very, very challenging. So simplifying things, making sure you have regular milestones that can be delivered, regular packages that can be delivered in a very short space of time, that make sure momentum's up there, people are engaged, and they can see progress. And transformations can take any number of years. Rav mentioned I was at Adecco previously. I've done quite a massive transformation in the Adecco UK business that I did, and I was part of the wider global transformation of the organization. Now that has been going for about 2.5, 3 years now. I expect it'll probably be a 7-year program overall. I've done some studies in Switzerland, and part of some of my colleagues that were at that course were from Emirates Group. Emirates have been going through a transformation for the last 7-8 years, and they're still nowhere near finished. So it just shows you the scale of these programs and how much needs to be invested into them to make them a reality. And it's not about just it's a quick win and we'll do this. It's about really taking a very hard look at what we're trying to achieve for the longer term to support our customers and obviously make the revenues. And then about obviously going back to the drawing board and how do you do that and get to that destination in small steps whilst maintaining business. Equally, transformations are not around just trying to run these as part of your day-to-day operations and your OPEX expenditure. It needs to be viewed as a separate program. I strongly believe they should be facilitated by a third party outside of the organization to make sure people are on track, because they become less emotional in the process and can help guide. But equally, I strongly believe that they should be using people within the organization to help facilitate that change. So it's a huge swathe of information that you have to understand. I think if anyone wants to get into a lot more detail about this, there's some courses you can do, I would say in Switzerland. It's not on the doorstep, but the University of St. Gallen has a very good executive MBA course. They also have accelerator courses, and it's called Business Engineering Accelerated. So it's a 10-day program. You go along and you are learning from the people that have literally written the book on business engineering and transformations. So fascinating stuff. I strongly suggest I can put you in touch with people there that if you are interested in the space, engage with them. They can really help your organizations. And equally, I'm not going to speak for too much longer because I would like a drink now and some more canapes. But please, I'm here for the rest of the evening. Connect with me, and I'm happy to share any more information with you guys. So I hope that was useful for you. It was a bit rushed, but yeah, connect afterwards and we can have a chat.